Hi everyone. At the time of recording this, the US election's in full flight. It's really nail biting. It looks like Biden's probably going to win, and it really looks unfair because Trump had such a big lead, and then it seems to be whittling away, and people are saying things like votes from nowhere and voter fraud because where are all these excess votes coming from and how come they're counting them so late? So I want to try and get, if not to the bottom of it, at least a long way towards the bottom of it and ask some big questions here. Let's assume there is voter fraud. Let's ask, where would you do it? How would you do it, and what would the results look like? I think, how would you do it? And you do it with mail-in ballots. To actually get human beings to walk in and vote, you'd need millions of them. How do you keep those people quiet afterwards? How do you ever pull that off? But with mail-in ballots, you could get your hands on, say, 100,000 mail-ins and just fraudulently fill them all out over a very long, hard weekend and somehow get them in. And so it would seem that mail-in ballots is, even Trump saying it himself, of course Trump's saying it himself. Where would you do it? Well, you do it in a battleground state, of course. There's no point in doing it in California or Hawaii. You're going to win that anyway. There's no point in doing it in Nebraska or Alaska. You're never going to win those ones. But you would do it in a state that has weak laws preventing voter fraud as well, which brings us to what the battleground states are. These are the guys that everyone's talking about: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Idaho. Flip two of those and Biden wins. Now, in Pennsylvania on the 24th of October, their Supreme Court ruled that county boards of elections are prohibited from rejecting absentee or mail-in ballots based on signature comparisons conducted, blah, 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 blah. So, of course, when you do a vote, you've got to sign off on it. But in Pennsylvania, even if the signature is terrible, if there is no signature, or if the signature just does not match what they've got on records, they can't reject it. So if I was going to commit voter fraud, I would most definitely do it in Pennsylvania. And as I understand it, two things. Number one, this isn't like this anywhere else. In all those other battleground states, you require a good signature and ballots really are being rejected. But also, I understand Pennsylvania's legal system around these sorts of things is terrible and notoriously so. So another thing that's causing people some concern is that there are only two states, North Carolina and Pennsylvania, where you can accept absentee ballots after election day. Now that seems odd. If you did want to find out that you thought you were going to, if you're Joe Biden, you thought you were going to win North Carolina and then suddenly looked as though it wasn't, perhaps you could stuff some more ballots in afterwards, I suppose is what people are getting at. But this is the graph that's caused all the concern. What it's saying here is that Pennsylvania has a 57.7% advantage to Biden over Trump with absentee voting. Now that's huge. Michigan too, and Ohio. So what a lot of Biden supporters are saying is there's no big deal that all mail-in votes are going to support Biden. But if you look at this, clearly not. I mean, in Florida, he's only got a 1.3% advantage. If it is the case that mail-in ballots are going to support Biden, then you would expect it to be uniform across the whole country. For example, if we said that all women have long hair or women have a tendency to have long hair, you would expect that to be the same in Georgia, Minnesota, North Carolina, Florida. But here, if mail-in ballots tend to support Biden, it clearly shows that it supports Biden in the state where it's easiest to get away with voter fraud and in a state that Biden really needs to flip to get 20 votes. Clearly, this is suspicious. If you're suspicious about this, I think you've got fair reason to be. Now, it's a shame we can't get Wisconsin. It'd be great to have Wisconsin, but they just don't seem to put in their ballots. However, there's a few things to consider. I went to the horse's mouth and had a look here. This is from the New York Times website, and this is for Pennsylvania. You can see it's staggering. Like, it is absolutely staggering, but only 28% of counties, only 19 of 67 have reported absentee votes. So perhaps this is just the cities. Like, this could be totally FUBAR. This could just be the problem of the 28%. Now let's have a look at, I believe this was Michigan. Yes, it was. Again, huge, staggering turnout, but only 16%. Like, it's not enough. You can't form an opinion on that. Let's take a look at North Carolina with 100% of counties counted. Much better. Like, it still supports Biden a little bit, but this is with the full set of data. Just coming back to the Pennsylvania one, however, we are seeing playing out live on CNN and Fox News that it is more like this. Like, this does really seem to be how it's playing out in real life as we're watching Trump's lead dwindle away. So perhaps this isn't the case. Perhaps this is a very good indicative sample of the population. This is something that's come out from the ABC News. And it says, among those who intend to vote early, 67% are expected to vote for Biden. So this does support the Pennsylvania. I don't know how on earth North Carolina hasn't ended up with this sort of table. It would support the idea that Biden's getting underrepresented by mail-in ballots in North Carolina, or perhaps North Carolina just happens to be different because of some legislative reason. Finally, this is something else I was able to find out that may support a conclusion. You can see that there are states that cannot even start counting until election day, which would be Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And then there are states down here like Nevada, Minnesota, Arizona that can start counting. This is the light yellow triangles, and can start reporting. That's the dark orange triangles, well before election day. And then you get these middle of the road ones that can start counting but can't start reporting. So maybe what explains Pennsylvania is that they have to start counting and reporting on election day. Hence, these other states have long since reported that the additional votes for Biden, at the get-go, at the very start, because they'd already had a chance to count them. Michigan had 1 day to count them. I suppose that would be enough, but who knows? It's more food for thought. So just to come back, this really seems to be the tail of the tape. If voter fraud was going to happen, it would happen here because that's where it's most easiest. It's a battleground state. And boy, oh boy, look at those really big numbers. And Biden's position that, well, all mail-in ballots are going to support Biden just don't stack up when you look at some of these other other different states down here. I can't think of any reason why Pennsylvania would have such a huge mail-in ballot. Now, to move on to the next argument that there's voter fraud is that voter turnout is ridiculous. People are saying that in states like Wisconsin, when there's been like a 1% increase in voting age population, there's suddenly been a 6.7% increase in people that are voting. And again, here in Michigan, that's about 1% increase again, but a 9% increase in people that are actually voting. And that is the difference between the 1% and the 9% is voter fraud or something like that. But we can clearly dispel that by having a look at every state here. Oops, excuse me. You can see the biggest increase was Hawaii from wherever it was there, 33% all the way up to 66% or whatever, 40 to 60 probably, that is more likely. Idaho, Montana, Texas, Georgia, all of these states saw really big increases in voter turnout. I doubt Hawaii's population's gone up that far. And you can even look at some of the states down here like Alaska and Mississippi and DC and California. California, interestingly, it's the pink lines down the bottom. Those states actually decreased. And here we have the grey ones. We'll find Wisconsin here, and we will find Pennsylvania here. So Pennsylvania actually didn't really increase that much. If Wisconsin and if Michigan, it wasn't that alarming. It doesn't seem as though, it just seems that there's been bigger voter turnout generally amongst most states, and that's because Trump's a really divisive figure. Okay, so there's Michigan there. Yeah, pretty big, perhaps. I mean, an old Rust Belt state. 1% increase in population, 10% increase in voter turnout. But, it's in the pack there. I don't know that it's that much of an anomaly. Finally, speaking of anomalies, everyone has seen this graph by now, right? Here we have Biden all of a sudden getting a huge bump late in the day in Wisconsin, which seemed to push him over the edge. However, if we go to the horse's mouth, this is the New York Times, and this is the bump they're talking about. This is the official picture of the bump. Look, it happened here as well. Biden got a bump there, and Trump got a bump here. And if we move forward to just a nothing state that isn't controversial at all, Idaho, you can see that a bump down for Biden, a bump down for Biden, a bump down for Biden. It looks to be happening fairly regularly. I would say that the graph here is percentage points. So early in the piece, it's very easy to get a big percentage jump because there's not too many votes counted. To go back, this is late in the day. If this is a 3% jump, 3% of 80% or whatever that is much bigger than, say, 3% of 20%. So that's my take on whether or not there's voter fraud here. I'm going to summarize by saying the system looks terrible. I mean, there's the actual voter fraud, and then there's the appearance of voter fraud. And secondly, the second one is in play here right now. I understand why people are skeptical. It doesn't look a very good system. Don't understand why you can get away without signing for signatures. I don't know how you'd ever audit Pennsylvania after this if you weren't going to disallow fraudulent or absent or failed signatures. And certainly the length of time it's taking to count them. It does seem that they counted 80% of them in about 6 hours. And that extra 20% is taking a long period of time, almost as though someone's in charge of something, telling people to stop the count, telling people to wait a little while longer. We need to get the special ballots to come in. It hasn't gone very well, but besides this picture back, oops, there we go. I haven't seen any proof of voter fraud, but that thing there, that needs an explanation. And unfortunately, because of the laws in Pennsylvania, I don't know that you're ever going to be able to take a ballot and go back to the person who supposedly lodged it and say to them, is this your signature or not? Because the Pennsylvania laws don't seem to care. I would just add as a final point here, within Pennsylvania, I believe, at least what I've read, the rules is that you have to lodge your ballot at, say, a post office or someplace like that, and you're supposed to sign for it at the time. But what you're signing is one of those dodgy little screens that they have at the post office where you sign with like a stylus. I've done that. It has never looked like my signature, ever. I suppose you could have one man and one woman go and lodge 100,000 votes on behalf of a male person and a fraudulent male person, and 100,000, the woman lodge 100,000 votes on behalf of a supposed female that doesn't exist. And that funny little stylus on that funny little screen, no, there's no way you'd prove that. Pennsylvania could be suspect, but Michigan has the laws that says that they can check signatures. On that basis, even if this is voter fraud, Trump should be able to overturn it in the Supreme Court if he wishes. And that's enough from me. Thanks very much for listening. I'm probably going to do another one of these in a couple of weeks or at least in a couple of months when we know the answers. Thanks, guys. I hope the election turns out not too scary for you and you stay safe wherever you are in the world. Bye.